All right, everybody. My name is Michael Fleischer. I am a staff solution engineer with VMware. And with me, I have Patrick Kramer, who is a staff cloud solution architect. Today, we are going to be walking through the cross-platform SRE, no OS left behind. So what the ultimate goal here is to walk through how to get your workstation, your battle station, whatever you want to call it, ready to go to become that SRE. So we've built some cool things here. We have a really cool session, I think, because look, we've got both Mac and PC running at the same time. We're going to do some cool stuff across both. I'm pretty excited about it. So with that, Patrick, did you want to do a quick intro? And I'll give a quick intro and then we'll get going.
Sure. Patrick Kramer, Staff Cloud Solution Architect, VMware Cloud on AWS. It has been coming up on 7 years at VMware. I started off as your classic sysadmin track. So that is what I know. I come out of managing large vSphere environments. And I've just recently, over the last year or two, started to expand my skill set into things like code and SRE type activities.
And I am Michael Fleischer. Like I said, I have the opposite story, which is kind of interesting. So if anybody came to the session yesterday, you heard this already, but I'll give it really quickly. So I went to college to be a computer engineer. So I wanted to come out and be a developer. And I sort of fell into infrastructure via the job market and realized that I could use those developer skills to make infrastructure awesome and automated and just all cool stuff. So from there, I was a VMware customer for a number of years, moved to a partner for a year. And then now I've been with VMware for just over 3 years. And I'm just a core solution, I say just a core solution engineer. So I focus on our entire product set. Specifically, I dig into Tanzu a little heavier than most because I love the developer side of things and it makes me happy. But yeah, that's me. All right. So Patrick, let's go ahead and talk about, I guess, where do you start? Like what are the best applications and what do you need to install to get going, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You muted?
And, I'll talk on mute as long as you want to watch my head move. So at a bare minimum, you're gonna need a code editor, right? VS Code is probably the most widely used cross-platform code editor. They're there, but there's others, but Visual Studio Code, Git, the most commonly used source code repository. So you're gonna need the Git tools and a little bit of know-how on how to use them. If you're going to work with REST APIs and if you're going to do SRE work, you're definitely going to have to know how to work with those. You're going to need a little utility called curl, a utility called POSTMAN, a lot of people will use to interact with REST APIs, trying to figure them out before you even attempt to write code against them. Those are the big four, I would say.
And no, I think that's really about it. Well, I guess PowerShell in general. So PowerShell is now a universal product, not specifically Microsoft anymore. So it will work on both Linux and Mac, and it's all delicious because PowerShell is awesome. I said this again on the session yesterday, but I'm not the biggest Microsoft guy in the entire world. I know their products very well, but PowerShell is one thing they did get right, and they got it very right, and I love it. It makes short work of really difficult things. And if something doesn't exist, you can build a module that does what you need to do in no time flat. So PowerShell is one thing that I am super proponent of, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Patrick just talked about a whole bunch of really cool things and applications that you have to install. Sometimes it takes a minute to do that and you have to go all over the place, and maybe you have a blog that tells you which ones to install. For this session, we wanted to do not really a grand unveiling, it's nothing fancy, but one of the outputs here that I will push to a GitHub repository that we have here called Start Coding Today, which Patrick is looking at right now. I have not pushed these out yet because I do need to test them one more time because I don't want to be that guy that sends out stuff that's not that great. But we have built 2 scripts here that will stand up everything we just talked about. One for Windows right here and one for Mac. So that will go out, install the package manager of choice that we like from each OS, For Windows, that is chocolatey, and for Mac, that is homebrew. And then it will go out and grab all the packages we just talked about. So with these scripts, you can just go in, run, and you have everything you're ready to go with your Battlestation to be an SRE. So I'm kind of excited about this. I'm gonna really take these and kind of go up another level and make this like a bootstrapping script, meaning if I get a new Mac or if I get a new VM, Mac VM or Windows VM, and I just want to get going and don't want to have to think about what I need to install, I want this to be the one-stop shop of, hey, run this, and then you don't have to do anything else. So again, the first push will be tonight or today. I'll say today. And once I do one more test after this, once this call is over, and then you all can reap the benefits. And again, if anybody wants to help, please, we would love contributions here, and we can walk through what it means to contribute to a Git repository and all that good stuff too.
Yeah, I'm a recent convert to chocolatey. I used to, install stuff the old way on Windows, click next, click next, click next. And Mac users and Linux people have long since enjoyed automated installs from a repository. So if you're a Windows person, jump on the chocolatey bandwagon. That's my suggestion.
Jump on the chocolate bandwagon. I like that. All right. With that, what we wanted to really do today is walk through what it looks like, how to do things as it relates to all of the stuff we just talked about. So hitting things via CLI, hitting things, and by things, I mean vCenter specifically, via API, and how to do that similar task across all those different things. So let's hit something via CLI, let's hit it via API, via curl on the command line, and let's hit it via Postman. So we get a nice little spread.
Yeah. So what we're doing this against a VMware Cloud on AWS vCenter. Now, all the code that we put out here is all stuff that you can run against your own environment. We didn't do anything special. It's just vCenter API. So everything that you're going to see here, it'll be right here in this README. All the stuff that you want to run, you can run it all directly against your own vCenter. Most of you, or many of you, certainly sysadmins, will be familiar with PowerCLI. So PowerCLI is VMware's library to interact programmatically using PowerShell. And so this is how you actually connect to a vCenter. And once you connect, you can run commands. And a lot of you will be familiar with this, right? Get VM, list out all the VMs. Get VM host, list out all of the hosts there. Get folder. There's all the folders. This is a blank SDDC, so these are just the default folders that show up in the SDDC. And if you run this one, this is all of the commandlets that come in PowerCLI. So it's a ton. And what PowerCLI does is it abstracts the API. What's happening under the covers is you're calling an API in the back end, but PowerCLI turns a complex API call into just a simple command. And because it's cross-platform now, right? So if you're doing PowerShell 7 on Windows versus Mac, it's going to be the same thing. So we're going to look at how to create a folder. So in VMC on AWS, we have this workloads folder, and that's where you're supposed to create folders under. That's the location. So this is just a little bit of PowerCLI code. You're putting the workloads folder into a variable. That's all you're doing. And then we want to make a folder underneath it in code. New folder, the name of the folder, and the location under which you want to put that folder. There you go. It finished. And if we refresh our screen, there's my folder underneath there, right? And Michael could do the same thing on the Mac.
I sure could. So literally it's the same thing minus, actually I'm in PowerShell already. So this is a normal terminal on Mac. And right now it is Zeesh is the shell that is default. I have all these nice add-ons in there, and there's a thing called Oh My Zeesh that makes it look nice, but this is just a normal shell. And so if I do PWSH, the PWSH, the command, I am now in a PowerShell prompt and can do all of the same stuff. So if I go up, because I don't like typing and I already typed it before, I can log in to the same vCenter. Let me get the credentials because I don't have them handy. And not get the end line because sometimes that causes problems. There we go. I can connect to the same thing from this side and using the same exact commands all the way through, which is awesome. So that, to me, the fact that PowerShell core exists and that VMware's PowerCLI commandlets work on both sides is amazing. Just anecdotally, when I was a customer, I really wanted SRM because it's awesome and it helps you fail over things. And the way we were doing things initially when I got to this company was fully manual, like fully manual. And DR tests for VMware took 4, 5, 6 hours. I'm in sales now, I'm a SE, but apparently I was really bad at selling back then. And I couldn't get my manager to buy SRM. So I, again, being the coding dork, was like, well, you know what? I'll prove you wrong. I'll write SRM in PowerCLI. And I pretty much did. So I had an analog to to SRM in PowerCLI that went out, talked to the storage arrays, came back, or PowerShell talked to the storage arrays, cut the snapshots, attached them to the host where they needed to go, rescan the data storage, added the VMX file. So you can do very, very powerful things with PowerShell and PowerCLI. And the fact that I can do this from the comfort of my Mac and not from my Windows 2012 server that I used to run it from is just amazing. Amazing.
I will never run Windows. I don't know about the Mac world. It's all a mystery to me.
Oh, we didn't say it, Patrick. We have to. I'm a Mac.
I'm a PC, but I'm
all right, we got it done. All right, cool.
All right, talk to y'all after. Okay, so there's a Terraform module. If you want to poke around in Terraform too, in here, it'll work, and it's the same idea. You're creating folders. You're creating folders in many different ways. You're doing it through PowerShell. You're doing it through Terraform. We don't have time since we only have 30 minutes, so we decided to jump straight to REST API. What's happening under the covers is all these abstractions are calling APIs. An API stands for Application Programming Interface, and a developer creates an API to programmatically interact with a system. The majority of modern APIs follow the REST model. And if you've done databases in the past, right, you might recognize CRUD actions, create, read, update, or delete options. A REST API is basically the same thing. It's just different terminology. So in the REST API world, if you're creating something, you're doing a put. If you are trying to read a record out of your database, you're doing a get. If you're trying to update an existing record, you're doing a patch, and delete is the same. Delete is delete. And you're actually using HTTP GET. You're using GET requests all day long. Anytime you browse a web page, you're using a GET request. So you've been using GETs the entire time you've been on the internet, right? That's how the internet functions. More often than not, when you're submitting a form, you're doing a post. So REST API functions on top of the same protocols that the World Wide Web runs on. And there is a common tool called curl. It's a command line tool that you use to make HTTP requests. And it is a way to interact with APIs. So in this curl commands file here, so we've got a bash script here, curl commands, what actually happens on the back end, and we can actually run these again, both on Mac and on PC. So there's this curl command, and we're gonna run it. And let's take a look at what has happened. Well, let's first explain what we're trying to do. So we're doing curl. We have the -K in there because it's allowing you to connect insecurely. Now, the VMware Cloud on AWS, SDDCs, the vCenters all have publicly signed certificates. But if you're messing around in your home lab or whatever that doesn't have an actual cert, You're going to have to do that -K or it will fail. The -I prints out all these headers so we can see all the stuff that's going on in the background. And then -U is the credentials. And this is just the vCenter username and password. -X is the type of request. So we're trying to do a post. And this is the URL. And we are asking it to issue us a session token. So the way most APIs work is you send in username and password, and it turns around and gives you a temporary token, which is what this is. And that is what you use to authenticate to the rest of the API. It's a lot faster for the system to compare this temporary token than it is to actually continually compare username and password. It's also more secure. So when you talk about a cookie being set on a website, this is actually what's happening on the back end. You are setting a cookie and with a particular value that the web server is going to trust, right? So Michael can run the exact same thing on.
Sure can, with no changes, in fact.
You know, he'll get a similar response, but it should be a different, and it is a different cookie.
We would certainly hope it's a different session ID.
It would be bad if it wasn't, right? Mine ends in 732A and his ends in 6E56. It's very different because they're two different sessions. That's cool. And then the second command, this curl command, we are hitting, well, we're doing nothing because I can't copy and paste. Okay. So this first one, the URL was the REST API, VMware.com, and it was getting us a session token. This second command, it's all the same, insecure, but we're passing it a file. The -B tells it to pass a file because we saved all this cookie data in a text file. And that's basically like what your browser is doing. It just saves the cookie, right? The cookie gets written to a quote unquote text file in your browser, and it pushes the session data back to the API when you're browsing a website. So if we hit that, this should list all of our folders, and it did. And my folder will be in there somewhere. P. Kramer PS, there it is. Michael should get the exact same thing.
I do. Good.
So that worked. So that's what is happening on the back end. If we actually look at, we just look at the contents of token.txt. This is the actual format of a cookie. And you can see it's got the token in there, and it's got the URL that it's allowed to connect to, and the API call that it's allowed allowed for. And so
when was the last time anybody on here thought or heard of the name Netscape? I love that that's in our cookies. That makes me so happy.
Netscape. Wow, we are really digging back. So we've done that, right? So that works, and we got our list of folders, and it's, you know, it's the same as this list showing up. It's the same thing. The folders are coming back in JSON format, and you know, the vCenter UI is parsing that out into a pretty UI. But on the back end, it's all JSON that we're passing back and forth.
And that is a very good point. That's the beauty of all this, right? Is REST is the standard way to interact with services, and JSON, and there are others, but sticking here, JSON or JSON, however you pronounce it, is the standard way of receiving and sending data between web services. So as you get more and more into this sort of thing, hey, we can run this one call, get this bit of data, extract what we need or formulate what we need, and send it to another service to get something else done. So that's where pure web-based automation comes in, and using web services. And that's the beauty of all of this, is you don't have to go in and click to get stuff done. You can create a service that would do all of this connection for you on the back end using a little bit of code. Not much at all.
Now, here is Postman. So we did that in curl. I'm going to just create these new because we have enough time to do it. And you want to see what it's like blank. This is what Postman looks like. So this is a tool that you use to interact with APIs and test them out, because the last thing you want to do is sit down and try to write code against an API when you're not entirely sure how the API works. You want to figure out that the API works in Postman first, and then mess around with a language like trying to implement something in Python. Trying to debug the API is very painful if you're just stumbling around in the programming language. So it's a great idea to figure it out in Postman. So you can create a new call just by hitting this plus right here. And it is, again, the same URL. We're doing the exact same set of operations that we did here in curl. So we're copying this right here. And we're going to put it in the URL slot right here. And again, all the instructions are here. Now it is this URL is a post. This API is a post. So we're posting username and password, and we're asking it to return a token to us. So we're going to do the post, and then we need to give it credentials. So we're going to copy our password here. And in Postman, here in this auth tab, you can control how you authenticate against the API. Now, this is already in here because I had this set up before, but you're going to put your vCenter username and your vCenter password in here, and that's it. And we should be able to hit send, and we should get a token back. And it is an invalid protocol, and I am not entirely sure why that happened. So let's see. What did I do wrong? We've got a...
You are missing the H.
Missing the H in HTTPS, I think. Yeah, go all the way left.
Aha.
Another
copy and paste error.
That's
a little better. Okay, so here is our token. This is the exact same value. Well, not the exact same value, but it's the same as what we got back in curl. We got that little session ID. This will be a different one because it's yet another session. But it's the same idea. So we are maybe going to copy it if I'm capable of copying. Now we need to list the folders, right? Well, let me slide this back. So we're gonna do the plus here, and we're gonna do another one. And then we want to paste, again, the same URL. So the folder URL, we're gonna copy that. So if we copy that folder URL right here, and in this case, it was a get. All right, I've got the H there. And now we go to the auth, but we're not doing basic authentication. We're actually doing API key. And if you remember, when we looked at session.text, whatever I called it, token.text. We looked at token.text. The key name is VMware-API-session-ID. So that is what we need to pass it here for the key. And then we need to pass the value, which is this one, that we just got returned out of here. So we've got this, ending in F1B9, ending in F1B9. So if we hit send, we should get our list of folders in JSON. Now, what's nice about this is it automatically formats it pretty, so it's easy to scroll through and see what it looks like. That is it for the introduction to a little bit on REST APIs and curl. All this stuff is going on in the background all day long when you interact with services on the internet. And most people have no idea about what's all the complexity that's actually going on in the back. But this is the foundation of modern websites. So the foundation of APIs. So questions, we got 3 minutes for questions, thoughts, ideas, anything else you want to see? Janny says Postman for NSX. Yep, if you've messed with NSX for any period of time, you're probably going to end up in Postman to do stuff in the API, particularly in VMC. There's a lot of stuff that is not exposed in the UI. So you have to get decent at the API. That's one of the reasons why I have gotten good at it, specifically because there are a number of things that I needed to help customers get set. And it's API only in many cases.
So that's a good segue here. So we at VMware, all of our products now are developed API first. So as you see new features come in, you'll see sometimes it's not in the UI yet, but hey, there is an API that does that. It's because we develop the APIs first, make sure they're good, they're solid, and then we integrate them into the UI to make sure the user experience is proper. So yes, we are, excuse me, very much an API first development company at this point, which is great because that means that there's a ton of features and things happening, and you might not need them in the UI, but we need to do a lot of things, and you need to be able to do a lot of things with your automation, but you might not need to click on the button that does that in the UI. But yeah, being API first is a great thing.
Marlon's throwing tips. I mean, yes, you can. There are all kinds of stuff that you can do in JSON. You can automatically save that key to a variable, and you wouldn't have to populate this with the variable. Like we could spend probably a week on all sorts of POSTMAN tips and tricks, but that is true, Marlon. Where can we keep up with the API updates that come and exist? So depends on the product line, right? To be honest, we are going through improving our documentation through something called Project Eve, and it's getting better at developer.vmware.com to be able to search through them. Depending on the product, some of the docs are not the greatest, but it's an active, well-funded, and well-participated in project. So I expect that story will continue to improve as we get deeper. Is there Swagger? Is there a Swagger interface for vCenter? That's a good question.
Do we have Swagger UI in vCenter? That's a good question. So if you do your vCenter /API, it should spit back something. I don't know if it's Swagger based. It might just be insert visualization of UI here. But that's a good question, and I feel like I should know the answer to that right now.
I should too. I don't know if that's the docs. The documentation is at developer. The REST API. Well, it's kind of a complex question because we're in between, right? We've got SOAP APIs, which are the bulk of the APIs in vCenter, and then we have REST APIs. So, and it's not full coverage on the REST API for vCenter Server today. It's an active project. Marlon says, yes, there's Swagger for VRA. I don't think it exists for vCenter.
Do we have web access to that vCenter we have up in VMC?
Yeah, you can hit it.
Okay, stand by. We can do this live. We'll do it live. Stand by, let me grab this.
How does this relate to GovC? So GovC is another abstraction, like a command line utility into the API. So GovC is just another abstraction, right? It is a command line way to interact with the API without having to directly call the raw API. So you can think of GovC as an abstraction, kind of the same as PowerCLI, right? It's a higher level abstraction to make it easier to interact with the backend API. Now, look, there's our answer in chat.
I'm going to share my screen again. Let me just share just Safari. There we go. Okay, so this, as far as I know, is not purely Swagger based, but on vCenter 7 and up, I think it came out with 7.0, maybe it came out with 6.7 update something. If you go into your vSphere client and click on Developer Center, you can explore all the APIs right here, which is super cool. So this is where again, when I'm up at night and can't sleep, I'll dig in here and look for stuff just because, again, I get bored. But there's lots of good, everything that's exposed to the API is here, right? And you can test it here, click on buttons and make stuff happen. It's pretty cool. And the other cool thing, talked about this yesterday as well, is code capture. So if if you're, let's say you're looking to figure out what is going on behind the scenes. So you're like, hey, I do this 3-button action all the time, and I want to know what's vCenter doing to get that done. What you can do is enable code capture, hit a record button. It'll basically, you hit record, you go do the actions you want to do, hit stop, come back here, and it'll spit it into PowerCLI for you. So it won't be purely clean, like, hey, this is the best written PowerCLI ever, but it will give you a gist of exactly what's going on API wise behind the scenes and give you the steps to get it done, which is super cool. So this feature here, if you have not played with it, do yourself a favor. It's a lot of fun because it helps you get to the root of what is actually going on if you want to automate something.
Yes. Will the session be available on demand? Yes, they will post it to the VMware Code webpage. It'll be a couple days, but yes, the session will definitely be posted.
Yeah, I think that's why I said I was rattling numbers up. I think Developer Center was released in 6.7 update something. I think it came out with 6.7 update 3 jumps into my head, but maybe it was update 2. But again, I'm just kind of rattling here. But yes, it is available, as Johnny said, on some point of 6.7, which is great.
So we are past time. I can hang on a little bit longer if you have more questions. If you need to jump to your next session, go for it. And thanks for hopping on. Hope you all learned something.
I had a blast. Thank you so much. And again, I am more than willing to stay on for a bit and talk.
You have a list of resources for learning some of this stuff. Been messing around in PowerCLI a bit, but trying to expand my horizon.
So that'll be a good thing for us to post to the repository. So I'll have that as a takeaway to add some learning resources.
You know what we should do? We should share the repository. We didn't do that. Stand by.
I put it in chat at the beginning, but
did you? Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
We'll do it again.
But yes, great point. So I know Patrick and I are both incredibly, we're very passionate about this stuff. So I think I'll make it a definite. We're going to keep this thing updated and have some fun, so that there's one good one-stop resource to get started on all this good stuff. And I dropped that link in the chat again.
What is the best tool for messing around with Python stuff like PyVMami? Yeah, I mean, I use VS Code. That's how I learned Python. I didn't know anything about Python to start. I actually took an intro to Python course on LinkedIn Learning, of all things. This 4.5-hour intro to Python. Like I didn't need a course that would teach me like what a variable is or what a loop is. Like I knew that much, but like I had no idea what the power of Python was. And it is like truly a language that's designed to be able to interact with APIs. Like the data types align directly with the JSON that you're working with, most likely. And it's pretty impressive how quickly and easily you can get data out of an API in Python. I was quite pleasantly surprised that it was just not that bad when I got into it.
And honestly, if you wanted to create a new API that ingests data from somewhere and sends it somewhere else, also super simple in Python. My buddy that I used to work with actually just blogged about that recently. I'm sure I can pull that up, but Python is just, it's super versatile. It's super now. And I mean that in the way that a lot of people are using it so that it has enough market share that it's not going anywhere for a while. And it's not like I'm saying, hey, go learn Perl, which is, dead in the water. Python is very, very now and has been for a bit. Yeah, I'm trying, or fine. COBOL, like don't go learn COBOL right now, please. Python, you can write full object-oriented applications in Python, and people do, like lots of big companies do. Excuse me. It's not just an interpreted scripting language like it was once seen. It's a full featured language, 100%.
I just saw 3.10 dropped. Have you seen some of the error handling there?
I have.
Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, they've really improved like the interpreter so that when you miss a bracket, for instance, one of the most likely things, or a parenthesis, you know, it knows. So instead of some baloney error that is, you know, on a line that's nowhere near where you screwed up, it actually does a much better job of pinpointing where you messed up.
So incredibly helpful that it's not just like, there's a problem.
Yeah, I quit. See ya. What else? Anything else? I see Ryan, which I know is not your name, but thanks, Mark. Thanks, John.
Thank you much.
All right, y'all, we're going to end the session. Thank you so much for coming. Please fill out the surveys so that we know if we're on target. The only way we know whether we're hitting what you need as part of this VMware code is if you tell us. So tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't like, tell us what you want next in the feedback so we know what to put on. More, please. Okay, thank you.
I'm in. I will come back and do this once a month. I don't know what that means, but I'm all in. Nathan, thank you. That was we've been planning this for a while, and it seems trivial. It's not that trivial to make that happen. So I'm glad you liked the dual setup. That was
hard.
Yeah, it was one of those things we had to click way too many buttons, and once it finally worked, I ran around my room screaming. Like, I'll just be honest, it was super cool.
Just like your kids, right?
Exactly.
Get your Windows set up at your Mac. Hey, stay on Windows. Who needs a Mac?
Woof. All right, we're going to throw down at the end of this, aren't we? Okay.
No, I see the value now. I can't pry myself away from 30 years of Windows, right? I've been using Windows since 3.1. Like, how? How can I make that switch at this point?
Was a PC. I had 3.1.1 at home. 3.1.1, which was Windows for Workgroups. I don't know why we had that at home, but we did. Bought it from CompUSA. And yeah, I switched to, I got my first Mac in 2004. So that was OS 10 Tiger, and never looked back. Again, I was a Windows admin for a long time. So I know Windows and I know Microsoft administration very well, but for my cold dead hands, will you pry my Mac from me?
Patrick, there's a way of making it much easier. Just start working with Windows containers in TKGI or Tanzu for a while, and you'll never like Windows again.
Fair enough.
That was the best answer. That was the best answer.
Yeah, well, the more we dig into this and the more we go down this Tanzu path as a company, the more likely I am to probably not have a Windows machine next. But
I will say, my buddy, who was like, again, the opposite, cold dead hands, you take my PC. He was like, I think I'm going for a Mac this time on his refresh coming up. I was like, I love you. Let's talk for 3 hours. I'll get you set up. So it happens. There are still converts these days.
Oh man, we'll have to have a whole session about that. The psychology and the fear of what I like. Yeah, I don't even know how to install something. Like that's how little I know, right? I literally don't know how to install software on a Mac.
So if you wanted to do a GUI piece of software, you know how to drag and drop?
Well, I demonstrated that I can only copy and paste half the time during the session.
Well, okay, fair. So maybe you don't know how to do it, but it is super simple.
All right. Thanks for joining. We'll see y'all.
Thanks all.
Bye.